Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 253 of the Civil Gore Podcast. I'm your host, Tim.
And this is Brian. And we went back to our early OG Civil Gore crush here in this movie with Maika Monroe.
That's right.
We decided to watch Watcher, actually. Not The Watcher. Because once again, horror movies got to drive you crazy. Because there is a movie, The Watcher, and then there was the miniseries, right? The Watcher.
Yeah.
This is the one on Shudder with Maika Monroe, so not to get confused with the other ones. But yeah, this movie is what was we discussed, so we'll kind of stands apart from those. They're nothing. It's nothing like those other ones, kind of. But anyway, we might as well we'll get into that more later.
Yep. It's time for a pretty sizable, because we actually watched some stuff for you this time. Pretty sizable first chop. All right, Brian, kick that. Let's alternate these, since we both got a long list. I figured we could just alternate things that we watched. So I'll let you start off.
I started to do because of the chainsaw announcements, which we'll touch on a little bit later. I wanted to start really because surprisingly from the start, this is one of the few years of the chainsaws where I've watched so much, and I think it's because a lot of stuff got repeated in the categories for nominations.
Yeah.
So it made it a little easier because I think there were such good films this year that, you know, they were so good all around. So they like literally hit every category. So it kind of, while it's I guess good and bad in a way, you know, because bad, like, you know, there's not as many films represented, and there are definitely some severe snubs, which we're going to get to on a preview episode we've got lined up down the road. As it gets closer to the chainsaw, we got like I think a five-person roundtable. Six person roundtable coming up for that one. But we'll deal with we'll deal with those little things later with the different snubs, because there's one big one. But I'm gonna save it. I'm not gonna get all red, Brian, on that. But so I started to watch. I figured I'd knock off one of the categories completely. The one I can't. The documentary category, which is always a favorite of mine in any kind of film award, horror no less. Horror does great documentaries. Of course, the In Search of Darkness Part 3 is in there, and that's going to be the one to beat for me. I mean, how do you compete with something like that? I mean, but there are some other good ones. So I decided to watch the ones that I could. The only one I haven't yet tracked down yet, because it's not on Screenbox yet, which is coming to Screenbox, which is the Chucky one, Living with Chucky, which I heard is phenomenal.
Yeah, I really want to see that one.
Can't watch that one yet. It's not even available to rent on VOD, I don't think. I looked. But anyway, so the first one I watched on there was This Is Gwar, which is, of course, if you're familiar with the band Gwar, I mean, if you've seen Beavis and Butthead, you know them really well. If you were a big fan of that show, like I was, Holliston, Odor Sarungus, of course, the late David Bracke, of course, he was on that show repeatedly as kind of like he lived in the closet of Adam Green's character. It was kind of fun. But this documentary is fantastic. And I do not know much about their music. I know, like, literally the things I just said is what I know of Gwar. Mm-hmm. But I just thought the documentary did such a good job of giving you, the average person who's just probably heard the name, a really good insight of the whole history of the band and what they went up against. And they were cool because, like, literally they were told, like, in one example they give in the documentary is they're like, they get nominated for something for an award. I think it was the Grammys, actually. They said, don't show up in costume, because their costumes are really elaborate and gory. And they said, no, we're Gwar. We're coming. And they came in costume anyway. They went against every good advice that they might have given. Well, so-called good advice. I think they made the right call because, if you're not going to be yourself all the time, then why
and that is that's our whole thing. The costumes is their whole thing. I mean, you can't take that
that's like
away.
telling Kiss to show up without
their makeup,
on for a concert. People would revolt, I mean, I know years later they performed with that guy, but what I'm saying is Kiss in its heyday.
Yeah, Kiss in its heyday. Ask them not to have their makeup on.
The original four there, you're not gonna not show up. And I mean, Gene Simmons showed up in like a polo shirt. I think people would burn the stage down, So yeah, so I just love the fact that like the guy, you know, and they were such a family. It was funny how so many people were in and out of that band, and just so much like stuff going on. I just found it like really fascinating. It was just like overall just a great documentary. Period. And it just made it sense that, you know, there's that little the horror element to it, of course, with the band, the way they did stuff, and I thought that was great. Now I guess you want to skip to your next thing, right? We'll do it that
just
way.
kind of alternate.
Okay.
I've kind of tackled it crazy. I'm not going to call it a project because it would take too long to actually do this project. But I was monkeying around on Letterboxd, which I upgraded to Letterboxd Pro because
I just have you picture going, yeah, and like running around like an actual monkey or something.
Yeah, no, I upgraded to Letterboxd Pro because I'm using it a lot this year to track movies that I've watched and things. And the Pro version takes away the ads, which were like kill your browser speed. Like
wait, how much is it again?
It's like $20 a year.
Oh,
it's nothing. So,
Jeez,
and it makes the site so much faster. Like the site actually works now, and so I've been really enjoying going through and browsing and stuff, and spending more time there now that the website actually loads faster. And I found this list where a guy had put every movie either featured or the poster or was mentioned in all three In Search of Darkness movies.
Oh, I heard of that. Yeah, I saw that guy post something, I think, on Twitter once or something.
Yeah, it's like 640 some movies. So I went through and I marked all the ones I'd seen, obviously, and then the ones I haven't seen, which is, I think, around half. I think I'd roughly seen about half of them. So 300 some movies, and I just put them in a spreadsheet. And I started like just randomly picking some to watch. And I thought it was, I'm not going to necessarily attempt to see every single one of them. But as a thing where I don't know what to watch tonight. Oh, I'll just pick something off the list. I thought it'd be a fun little project to do. And the first one that came up was Body Count from 1986. And the interesting thing about this one is it was directed by Ruggero Deodato, who did Cannibal Holocaust, of course.
He had just passed away, right?
Yeah, recently, yeah. So I was interested, like, a slasher by him would be interesting. Unfortunately, it wasn't very interesting. I thought it was really generic, and I was hoping that it'd have like a little more of that Italian flair to it, but it really doesn't. It comes off as like a straight, like Friday the 13th type clone. And I was actually kind of disappointed in it. I mean, I don't even remember much about it, to be honest, and I just watched it like a few days ago. But it's a bunch of, a typical thing, college students out in the wilderness of Colorado, and they're getting stalked by a killer. But a little.
Oh, it's available on Freevee too. So
you can see it. If
people want to check it out, you can watch it if you have it on Prime. You can get that free.
Yeah, there's I think it might. Some of these are that I'm seeing are on Tubi. Now there's a lot that aren't available on this list too. So I'm just, as I run across one that's not available, I'll just mark it off.
Well, that's the whole point. I mean, that's one of the gems of In Search of Darkness Part 3 is because it's the ones with that went like the video error, those hard to find ones kind of. So it's like
it's been a fun challenge, but that one was not a great way to kick it off. But I have better news coming after your next one, Brian.
Yeah. The next one I know you watched was a fun one, Joe Bob, too. The next doc I saw on the list to complete what I can watch on that documentary one is the Pennywise story of It, which is on I think every streaming service.
Yeah, I think so.
Right now. But it was fun. It was a nice trip down memory lane. This is now strictly the original It, the miniseries. Now it has nothing to do with the new ones. So it's kind of fun, very very old school retro kind of doc. I mean, you go through they have all like the as many cast members as they could get back. I mean, of course, fortunately some were passed away. Did learn how to the whole time. I guess I don't know if they pronounced it wrong. I did, but I kept calling him Richard Mazer the whole time. Mm-hmm. Making his S a Z, but someone said Richard Masser, the way they called him that. So was I pronouncing this guy's name wrong the entire time? And we didn't get to meet him at the HorrorCon. He canceled that time. So I don't even know. It's one of those things. I'm going to have to dig deep to find out if I'm pronouncing it wrong or they pronounced it wrong.
I would put money on us pronouncing it wrong.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, I don't know where I got to make an S into a Z anyway. Who gave me that right? But anyway, so yeah, this one was pretty cool. It had some cool behind the scenes stuff. It is interesting how they said how like especially the John Ritter stories were great because I love big huge John Ritter fan, and I was so upset when he he tragically passed away way too young with so much more to do. And it was interesting because they were joking on set that his kid counterpart was the most mismatched out of all of them. So they said John Ritter basically like pulled the kid aside and he's like, let's just hang out. And like they hang out and he learned some mannerisms from each other, and then that made them match up, which in the movie was one of the highlights. I thought a lot of people used to say how well that was, and it's funny when they thought it was the exact opposite. So it's like fun, filled with tons of fun stories like that. And they go into, of course, how like a lot of good Stephen King clips of how he wrote the story and how it became his like, from one of his own nightmares, of course. And so it's just really cool, especially if you're a fan of the book and not just the miniseries. I think you can get a lot out of it. And there's some good Tim Curry stuff in there, too, which is probably now hard to get. And he's not, right? He's not well, I don't think. But yeah, so that's another great horror doc. If you're into horror docs, which I know most of us are, that's another good one. Pennywise Story of It. I watched it on Screenbox, but I think I want to say it's on Tubi also. And possibly Prime, I'm not sure, but you can check that out. But it's definitely available on Screenbox.
The next one up I watched was, again, off the In Search of Darkness list, and that was Black Roses from 1988. I had never seen this one, and I loved this one. Like, this is a new favorite of mine. It's about a band called...
This is a fun one.
Yeah, it's a band called Black Roses. They come to this small college town, and it's their first time they've ever played outside of the studio. And so all the kids in the town are super excited. All the parents are up in arms because they think it's satanic and it's going to corrupt the children and all this stuff. And so, classic parents versus rock and roll type thing.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, the Black Roses are a band of demons, actually. And so their plan all along was to play several shows in this small town and start possessing people. And it's just got some fantastic practical effects. Really, really good practical effects of the demons and stuff. And the soundtrack's actually really good.
Yeah,
I looked it up to see if you could still get it on vinyl, and you can, but it's like super expensive now. I'm sure a lot of people have discovered it with the popularity of vinyl, and especially horror soundtracks right now. I'm sure that one was really sought after. So
I could see that one being re-released though from like one of those specialty.
Yeah, like Waxworks or somebody.
Yeah, like one of those, or Mondo, whatever. Yeah. What's it called? Mondo something? Not Mondo Macabre. But
yeah, there's one.
Just Mondo.
There's a couple of big horror vinyl companies that just specialize in horror soundtracks.
I think you need to go back and watch the Joe Bob episode on it, the last drive-in one, which was probably, oh my God, that was a fun tweet along too. Because that one guy's outfit that kept changing, like with the plaid shirt on, everyone was cracking up through that.
Because I missed. That's one of the Joe Bobs I missed, and I was real. I need to go back and watch it because I'd love to hear what he had to say about it.
Yeah, it's fun, and I wish you were there for the tweet along because that was a good one. That was definitely a good tweet along one.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, that's a fun
great movie. Yeah,
it's still on Shudder, I think too, like in its entirety, not just on the Joe Bob.
Yes, yeah, you can see it on Shudder in its entirety. That's where I watched it. So highly recommend Black Roses.
Next thing I watched, I just started it. I know I'm behind in this, but I know there's a season 2 coming, and it got nominated. And that's Yellow Jackets. Did you watch that yet, Tim?
No, I haven't. It's on my list to watch for sure.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, there's definitely some cool gore that happens in it. It's one of the, I forgive me for, because I'm only 2 episodes in, and I don't want to go into any too many details, but basically the premise is it's almost like the way you got the grown-up version, the kids version, and they all had just survivors of this plane crash onto this area. And so far I'm getting like, Lord of the Flies vibe, there's something that, that they all did that's a secret that they're not trying to let out. And I just don't understand like why, like with all that you see in the movies, why any sports team would ever travel to a plane anymore. There's too many times this happens. I mean, between a lot, I swear. And I told you right that time when I had to take that little flight to Virginia, it was like one of those almost like little prop planes, and I'm sitting on board with like a soccer team, and that's it.
Oh my gosh,
I was terrified. And especially when the stewardess came and sat next to me in my empty seat, and I said, hi, is everything okay? She goes, yeah, I just need to balance the plane, so I need to sit on this side. And I'm like, oh my God, so you at like 112 pounds probably, give or take, is the difference from this plane not being balanced because you're sitting next to me? I said, I was just like, I was never so frightened. I'm not afraid of flying. That time I was. And I've been on like those little planes with like 4 people in it. You know, one of those little tiny little
Those
Cessnas or
scare me.
whatever,
Like,
and-
I'm not scared of commercial flying, but those little planes scare the crap out of me.
Yeah, and this one was not even that little. It was just one of those prop planes, you know, because it was a short flight.
Yeah.
And I was like, never again will I ever take that kind of a plane. I mean, I was traumatized. I was like, you know, just because I had seen Alive, and you know, then no, actually not Alive at that. I don't know if Alive was out at that time, or maybe it was. There was, but there's enough out there that I probably saw enough plane crash movies I've seen up to date that probably I you know that I had seen. I mean, but So yeah, so this one so far, I mean, it's great cast. I mean, amazing cast, and I mean, Christina Ricci alone is like phenomenal. And you know, it's got Julia Lewis, got Melanie Linsky. You know, and it's so far, it's like I'm really getting like I watched the first 2 episodes. I can't wait to watch the rest. You know, and so I think there's like 10 episodes in season 1, so I'm gonna try and knock those out as fast as I can, so I'm ready for season 2 in March. But yeah, definitely a fun, cool premise.
Nice. Next up, another one was mentioned early on by Tom Savini in Search of Darkness 3, and that's Man of a Thousand Faces from 1957. This is a story of Lon Chaney, and man, I'm kind of torn on this movie. Like, I enjoyed it, but his wife, James Cagney plays Lon Chaney in this, and he's great, of course, but his wife is this complete bitch. I mean, I'm sorry, I have no other way to describe it. So Lon Chaney's parents were deaf and mute, and so she goes. He finally relents and lets her meet him, but he doesn't want her to meet him because he knows how she is. And she's pregnant, so she's convinced that her child's going to be mute and deaf now. When she finds out that his parents are mute and deaf, and she just like completely turns into this total a-hole. Won't have anything to do with his parents. Basically calls them. She calls her. She's like, now I'm going to be pregnant with this mute deaf thing inside of me, just because his parents. I mean, she was a terrible person, and I don't know how true it is to real life, but in the movie, like, she was so annoying, and then it kind of goes through how, you know, he kind of finally got his start in Hollywood, and then how he got bigger. But, you know, it really mostly focuses on his terrible marriage. I think that's the part of the movie I really didn't like, because I couldn't stand his wife.
Is he trying to imply that's why he was so many faces?
I don't know.
Get out of his real
I was
life,
hoping it'd be a little more interesting in terms of, you know, the Hollywood aspect, which parts of it were, but then there was so much about his home life that was just unpleasant that it kind of made the movie not as great for me. But and it's really especially irritating because then Lon Chaney Jr., who was actually named Clayton, I think, or something like Creighton, he's in there, and he ends up like getting mad at his dad because his dad basically told him, like, his mom ran off on him like 2 or 3 times and just left him. So he just told Lon Chaney Jr. that she was dead. Well, when he grew up and found that out, that he got lied to, like, he got really pissed, and then he went off and lived with her. So so after all this time, after she abandoned him like 3 times, was a total bitch to his parents and everything, she ended up coming out like golden because she got the son's good graces, and then Lon Chaney died. So, like, it's almost like the bad guy won, you know, kind of thing. It just is kind of irritating, but I don't know, it's still a great movie. You know, James Cagney's James Cagney, so he's awesome. Yeah. So it's worth watching. But I didn't know his wife was so discriminatory.
I know, now it's like I look at him like more sympathetically.
I know. I was like, it was terrible. I don't know I don't know how exaggerated this is, but
yeah, we'll have to look that up.
But it was just terrible and it could have been a product of the times too. You know, we're obviously these days we wouldn't be making fun of or disregarding somebody that was deaf. But maybe like,
well, also you got to remember, every one of those like biopic type like movies takes one angle.
Yeah,
you know, there's very few that like don't have a sort of a slant to one
and
side.
And it's very melodramatic. I mean, it's 57, so the whole thing's played very melodramatically. Yeah.
Watch her be like a saint,
I know,
and like this be all wrong.
I don't know.
And like she was like, not only she got driven away by the parents or something, you know, who knows. Yeah, that was the last thing. The thing is, this is a rare thing. This is me talking about a book I read, not Tim. Yeah. So, and that's I saw this. I think I mentioned it that I found on social media. Like, so Lauren Marie Taylor had posted this book, and it's called Sackhead, the Friday the 13th Part 2 retrospective. And I love those type of books anyway. Like I loved like that Halloween one I read where it went through all of them, and then the sequel where it went through the unproduced ones. But this one is so cool because, Friday the 13th Part 2, I think, like, even though it's always been one of my favorites, I think the last couple of years has been like, it seems like everyone's favorite now. It seems like everyone's coming out of the woodwork to say how much they loved it.
Yeah, it has gotten a resurgence, hasn't it?
Right? I mean, the anniversary helped, I think. But if you think back, as far as sequels go, it was so good. It really was a great sequel. And when you find out like that it was rushed and that they were on like the tiniest of budgets and and all the piecing together of it, it's like, it's even more of a marvel of how good it was. And so this one, what I love about this book, the way they do it here is I'm trying to explain this the right way, like the best way to really sell it. But so what the author does is it's great. So he takes, and it's by R.G. Henning is the author, by the way. I want to give him his credit. What he does is so he takes each character. First, he goes through a little like thing about the movie itself. Then he goes through each character, gets their own like chapter. And first, he gives a whole like almost like a novelization of the character, how they were in the movie. And it almost recreates the scene like in novel form. And then they go into like little interview clips about when he talked to them personally, how what their thoughts were on the role, and then like it ends with like a little couple of pieces of like trivia. And I thought it was just so cool. I just loved reading this book. It was so fun. And it's like there's a couple things I found out in there, like he debunks some rumors that were always in there. But one of my favorite sequences in there is he says that, he says one of the biggest criticisms he's heard over the years through the fans were that in the scene where Tom McBride, gets the axe in the face and his wheelchair rolls down the big embankment. Yeah. Everyone says, how did that happen? He literally does almost like a JFK bullet investigation type of thing in there where he shows like a map almost of like how, like where it was. And he shows sequences in the movie that back it up. Like, everyone's saying, well, that big stairway wasn't near where he fell off. But he shows, like, two sequences in the movie that proves that it was. And then he even shows, like, how, like, if by the force of the machete getting hit, how the wheelchair would have turned, rolled down the hill, and then turned back down
awesome.
Yeah, so this book is so good. Especially if you're a fan of Friday the 13th Part 2, this is a must-read. It's only, like, 18-something on Amazon. Now, it's quick read, too. I mean, it's a few hundred pages. I mean, I think it's like almost 300 pages. But it's like, a short paperback book. And I have the best time reading it. Of course, a little impartial. One of my favorite chapters, of course, was our friend Lauren Marie Taylor, who went in and they said how she's one of the biggest ambassadors of Part 2. And we know firsthand that she was so great when we had her on. And she was so willing to just talk about it. And basically everything he described about her in the book was exactly right on as everything we experience of how friendly and outgoing she is and how much she loves talking about it and stuff. And yeah, and it was some other stuff I learned, like poor Stu Charno, the one that played Ted, the Joker in there, is like basically is now not only retired from acting for you, but he basically I forgot what disease he has, but he can't even like do anything for himself. Like he's got like 24-hour care or something to do the simplest things for him. It's really sad because he was such a, he loved, like when he was around doing the circuits and stuff, he would talk about how much he loved it. So it's just really, really a fantastic read for a fan of Friday the 13th, but specifically if you're a fan of Part 2. Oh my God, you got to read this. Got to read this book.
Nice. Yeah, I'm definitely going to pick that one up. The last one I watched was one that we both watched, Brian, and this is one we can't give. I don't want to give a lot of spoilers on.
Yeah, this one's hard to talk about and hard to even describe.
Yeah, and that is that's of course SKINAMARINK, which just came out on Shudder. I will say this. Well, let me preface this. If you're going to watch this movie, you have to watch it without distraction, in a dark room, preferably by yourself, preferably, because I think literally the only way this movie works is if you have total focus.
Yeah. That it's funny you said that because I was telling Julie about it today. We were on our walking Obi, and I was telling her about this movie, and I said it's so funny because Shudder made such an effort to get this movie into theaters. And normally, yes, that is the true way you want to see a movie, is in the theaters, in a nice dark room with a hot popcorn and, people around you, enjoying the movie with you. This is one where I'm like, I don't think it would work as well in the theater. I think you need to. This is like I saw someone wrote this whole thing. They said, "Oh, I forgot it was on Twitter." They said, "I took like I don't know, they were like I took an edible. I cleared the house out from everyone. I'm sitting in my dark room with headset phone on. I'm ready to watch SKINAMARINK, right?" And I'm like, kinda, yeah. I
mean,
like,
I could see the theater might.
You need the immersion. I think the close immersion for this.
Yeah, I could see the theater being good just because you are focused. You're not looking at a phone. You're not kind of that kind of thing.
There's
but
that, yeah.
It depends on the crowd too. You would definitely need a very quiet, well-behaved crowd to see this in the theater.
Which New York, forget it. Long Island, you're not finding that. I would never find that on Long Island. I'd find people screaming and laughing like in Hereditary. I mean, come on, so it's like I would never trust myself to watch a movie like that in the theater in Long Island right now.
But the best way I can describe it is it's not a narrative movie. It's just sort of like Mad God. It's like being in a nightmare for 90 minutes. And it's not like a beginning, middle, end type movie. It's just an experience for 90 minutes that you're kind of trapped in. And it's so funny. I was telling somebody else that there's two versions of this movie in my brain. Like part of my brain goes, oh my gosh, this was so overhyped nonsense. I mean, this guy just basically took scenes of dark rooms in his house and just put them all together for 90 minutes and it's way too long. And then there's another part of me that goes, oh my God, this is the most horrifying concept I can imagine. And I'm still thinking about it days later. And it's so weird because both versions of that opinion are coexisting in my brain at the same time. And so I can tell why it's so polarizing because I honestly see both sides of it. I really honestly do. On one hand, I see this as kind of student film gone awry, like this guy needed an editor. And then on the other hand, I'm like, this might be one of the most important movies like Paranormal Activity or Blair Witch. Like it could change horror in a way.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think the one thing you kept saying, you repeated, is 90 minutes. And I think that's part of the one criticism I see more than anything is that it was a little too long.
Yeah.
Like, and I think what happens is because how long can you look at, the visuals on it are like, it's hard to describe. It feels like you're looking at just some, like, really bad, like, old, like if you found some, like, old school TV and you're trying to get an antenna. Like to work, and it's like really stacked. But I know that's its point, and I know it's supposed to be unnerving, and it's supposed to be like almost feel like a nightmare, and it does that because we've all, trust me, when you've seen the movie, you'll see what he was going for, because everyone has had this type of nightmare, and I think the fact that they use, the children are the main characters, so you got to see it through their eyes too. Like, okay, well, this isn't that scary, but then you think about it. Okay, when you were 4 years old, this would have like paralyzed you, kind of thing. It's like, so I think though right now it's like every day I think about it and it sticks with you. So Tim, what Tim said about him, like still in his brain going back and forth, it's like it's like you have these two little SKINAMARINK devils on one shoulder and they're telling you one thing, you're like really, maybe there's a little overhyped, but then you're like, but then again, I really appreciate what the guy did. I realize, like, and what is the one criticism we say these days of how, all right, we've seen this before in this movie, we've seen this before in that movie. This, I could tell you, it'd be hard pressed to find something exactly like this out there. I mean, you could say, like, I'm sure there's a student film out there. Someone that says, well, excuse me, I've done this in a student film. Yeah, you have, but were you bold enough to now make this into a feature? Were you bold enough to kind of like get this at every film festival, to get such a push behind it, because you have to have some chutzpah, to really.
And the other thing too, we always talk
like
about how we've watched so many horror films, we're kind of jaded now, and we don't, nothing really scares us anymore. Like, I'm not saying that this like scared me so bad I couldn't sleep or anything, but it scared me in a way that was different than I've been scared before in a horror movie, which is saying something. I mean that.
I think it finds a way to hit that spot that you're not like, you don't bring with you to watch a movie. Yeah, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Like there's fears that we have in life that like you sit back in a dream, and it's rarely ever represented well on a movie because they're trying to get that more of the jump scare, try to get that like visceral, visual, audible scare. This one does something where it's very unique how it gets you, like it no matter what, you're not prepared for the type of thing, because I think it goes back, it brings back memories. It triggers each person's memories somehow.
Yeah,
It's hard to explain.
That's another reason it's polarizing too. I think you bring to it your own personal fears. Like if you were never scared of the dark, maybe this one doesn't bother you. If you remember as a kid being scared of the dark, this really captures that feeling.
Yeah, or you ever have that dream where you're in a familiar place, and you can't get out of it, and it's different enough. Like Tim and I, we always joke. Our group, our theme park group, always has these dreams. We always like joke about with each other where we're at a theme park and we know what theme park it is, but it's totally different. Like almost like the amusement park. Remember that movie we compared it to? It's like. Where it's like, well, okay, well, we knew we were at Dollywood, but all of a sudden there's this like 30-foot tall robot stomping on people. It's like almost like that kind of a thing where you're at it through this. It recreates a familiar place, and we've all had those dreams, but that like where it's this nightmarish version of it, and he does it by making it very like blank. It's some
all
level.
The camera angles,
like Tim said, you could fill your own nightmare in there.
And all the camera angles are like from a kid's perspective, and there's nothing's ever in frame. You're looking at like the top half of a door. You're never looking at the full door. It's very unsettling.
Yeah, like under a bed, or
it's very unsettling. I think it works on a psychological level to unsettle you because it's not filmed in the way a traditional movie's filmed, and it bothers you. And I could see some people that bothering them to the point that they don't like the movie. But if you can accept it and look at it as a psychological trick to make you uneasy and just kind of immerse yourself into it, it's very effective. So
yeah, I want to watch it the way that I want to like one day just take it. Like I watched it, I watched it on my iPad, but I didn't have the headphones on. I just watched it normally. And, but I was other than Obi sitting next to me kind of on my lap Julie wasn't home yet from work. So I was able to watch it still kind of by myself. But I think I want to do a full immersion version of it with like all the lights off, just my iPad or a TV and headphones or something.
I didn't do headphones. I wish I had. I watched it with all the lights off, just by myself. But it was, again, in a house with people. I could hear people walking around and that kind of thing. So I do want to do it with the headphones because I've heard the sound design's really good.
Yeah, and and there's like they put subtitles on it, because most of the time you can't understand completely what's being said anyway. Which again is like, how many nightmares have you had where you can't even remember the dream? You're like, well, they were saying something to me, but I don't know what it is. You can't replicate it. So I think that people they're going to be literally two trains of thought with this guy. They're going to think he's an overhyped hack, or people are going to think he's the most genius filmmaker on the planet.
I've literally seen professional reviews on both sides saying that.
And that's it's you see it. So I definitely think this is. I recommend it 1,000% because I think everyone needs to watch it. If you're a horror fan, you need to watch it. You got to form your opinion one way or the other on this because people will be talking about this for years, and you're going to now watch. And then you're going to start getting the clones, and people are going to say, "Oh, this was like I saw this one at SKINAMARINK." So watch this now while it's fresh before there's too many copycats.
I do think it's a game-changing movie in the same way as Blair Witch and Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it's commercially viable enough to spawn the same kind of number of clones that those movies spawned, but I think it does open the door for a different kind of horror experience. So
right, yeah, like that. People are gonna go for this immersion horror now. Like I know people have done it before. There's been things like video games. They tell you to do that, or there's like the VR horror thing that's coming. And it's funny because Eli Roth has that Valentine one, but like we saw a version. Remember Maggie Levin did one.
Yep.
Like she did one of those 360 things that you got to watch on your. I didn't have my Quest yet. You had it, so you got to watch it that way. But like, so it's not like. Eli Roth definitely not the first to do this. I mean, maybe it's the biggest one in terms of like real, like bigger known actors.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely worth watching. But speaking of things that are not worth watching,
once again the famous
famous To Be Trapped.
I have a feeling, and Tim was actually excited. I just go on record when I texted him this. He's like, "Oh, this will be fun."
Yeah, this was not fun. This is Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter, and I was looking for. I thought, okay. This one's gonna be pretty funny, I didn't expect a whole lot. What I got was so low budget. It's basically filmed on a camcorder with a bunch of your friends, kind of type deal. And
it's kind of like my with the one I watched.
So it was a little bit too low budget for my taste. But the thing here is vampires are attacking lesbians. So you got a bunch of lesbian vampires running around, and these priests decide to call upon Jesus Christ to come back and battle the vampires. So Jesus comes back. He's dressed like Jesus, like in the first 5-10 minutes of the movie, and it literally looks like a Jesus costume you'd get from Spirit Halloween.
Yeah, so he had to bring it back. That's
probably why,
right?
So he ends up going to, like, in the first 10 minutes of the movie, he like goes to a barber. He gets his beard shaved off and his mustache shaved off. He gets like a modern haircut. He gets his ears pierced, and then he gets regular street clothes. So from then on,
they just worked this into this guy's schedule of like
apparently
life and like whatever happened.
He doesn't look anything like Jesus for the rest of the movie, but he supposedly is Jesus. He meets this. I guess she was supposed to be kind of like a Mary Magdalene clone, but her name is Mary Magnum, and she's this girl that joins up with him to help fight the vampires, and then it gets really crazy. At some point, Santos, who is the Mexican
Why is that name got to be every day? Is he going to claim that?
It's
George Santos going to claim this was about him.
No, the Mexican wrestler guy that was in a bunch of like horror movies back in the day. We see him on the Dismemberment every now and again. It'll be like Santos versus the vampire, Santos versus the werewolf.
Oh, yeah. That guy. He's in this.
It's not really him, but they use the character of him. Yeah, as they call on him to help fight the vampires at one point. And there's only one good part of this whole movie, and that is the introduction of this. They go to this blues club, and the guy at the blues club that's singing is named Blind Jimmy Leper. And it's this guy, and he's got like those hillbilly teeth from like Party City or something.
Oh, God.
But he gets up there, and he's like...
Blind Jimmy Leper.
But he's like...
I feel like something Joe Bob would say, like, it takes me back to the days where I saw Blind Jimmy Leper down at the old Corral restaurant.
But the funniest part of it, he's doing this scat song, like scoobity boop doop dibbity dap dap.
Scat man? Was he
sort
doing
of like
scat
that?
man?
But he's like scoobity doop dop Obi-Wan Kenobi dabba dip dap Obi-Wan Kenobi skibbity dip dip bop bop.
Why Obi-Wan Kenobi?
And I was laughing so hard. Like that was the best part of the whole movie. It was freaking hilarious. So if you only watch one part of this movie, just watch the Blind Jimmy Leper part. I think that.
Yeah, how long is it? Do you have like a what is it, a chapter mark?
I could. It's towards it's a 90-minute film, so it's probably about the 1 hour mark. You'll see Blind Jimmy Leper. So
they made you wait 1 hour.
Yeah,
to
the
see
best
the best
part of the
them.
movie. But so yeah, it's your typical most of this movie is Jesus fighting vampires, but with really awkward and very slow choreography. Like you could tell they were trying not to actually hit each other. So it was like very amateurish, very awkward choreography to fight choreography. So, and it makes up literally the bulk of the movie. It'll be like a few lines of dialogue, and then all of a sudden vampires are attacking again. So I can't recommend this one at all, but I always try to find one silver lining, and my one silver lining this time was Blind Jimmy Leper singing about Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, maybe you should search, see if they gave him a spinoff. Because I'm sure you were not alone in finding that probably the best part.
Yeah.
That seems like he was like the I bet you he's like got this cult following in the town, and that's really his name.
Gosh,
or something.
I love Blind Jimmy Leper.
Well, that was like I found this one. We went to this place we used to go to, and they used to have these weird bands, and one of them was this guy called the Gangsta Rabbi, and he was like, and for some reason I kept calling him the Galactic Rabbi. I don't know why. But anyway, he was like, I have a feeling he was like, he just would come up with weird like he plays cover songs and some original stuff, but he always seemed to tie in with the same like weird lyrics every once in a while. So, and it kind of brought me back to that. But I think we'll skip the Chainsaw recap. We think we'll save it for our big preview show because anyone can go see it on there, and I don't want to get into a whole big huge thing on it. And then we'll have another thing. But I do want to do another promo quick for our good friend Emily Sweet, who of course has made appearances on our show many a time, and she's got her black wax. It's called the Black Wax. It's a candle company, soy candle company. I don't know if you've seen some of these, Tim, yet, but they are just absolutely amazing. I ordered one, or actually I ordered a few. My favorite one was I ordered the Unwise Skull, which is the three skulls like
Yeah,
on top,
that's my favorite
on the
too.
top of each other with the hear no evil scenery kind of, and but they're so I know Ken ordered some, and they're just really phenomenal, and they're it's nice to get a good woman owned small business like that to support, and you always want to help support that, and her stuff is just really good. Just if you want to see it, she's got an Instagram page, but also do the www.theblackwax.net. And you can shop that, and she ships it really fast. And actually, a coworker of mine, I saw it because she's into, she likes horror stuff, especially she loves decor, horror decor, and so I showed her that. So she ordered something for her husband for Valentine's Day. So with Valentine's Day coming up, when you're listening to this, you want to get something for your horror fan, that loves candles and decor, or just want to get him a cool horror treat. Go check on the blackwax.net and get Emily's got some great stuff on here, and she works really hard making a really great product, and she ships it as soon as possible, which is great. So you get it really fast. She ships it really good, so it comes perfect. I mean, candles, you could you look at it funny, and a chip comes off. Mine came in perfect condition, perfectly packed. So definitely, guys, check that out. And we'll put the link again in our show notes. And we're always we're trying to promote it as much as we can, so check those out.
All right, well, it's time for our feature film. We chose this one because it's heavily featured in the Chainsaw Awards. It was up for a number of nominations, and I really wanted to see it because, of course, of Maika Monroe. I'm such a big fan of hers.
Yeah, we're not gonna lie. She's definitely a OG Civil War crush
for
from
sure.
back in the day, and one of our favorite horror films of all time. She starred in, so it helps with that too.
Yeah, and I have not actually seen her in anything. I don't think since It Follows.
Well, she was in the Independence Day sequel. I mean, not that far.
Yeah. I mean, I know she's been in some stuff. I just haven't seen it, so it was good to see her back on the screen. Watcher came out last year. It was directed by Chloe Okuno. Hopefully, I got that name right. And I'll talk about female director for this movie was just absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. We'll talk about that in a minute. Starring Maika Monroe as Julia, Carl Glisman as Francis, Vern Gorman as Watcher/Weber.
He's not related to Psycho Gorman, by the way.
He could be. He could be.
He could be. I don't know.
Tudor Petrut as taxi driver, Gabriella Bertuk as Flavia, and Madeline Ania as Arena. I totally butchered this.
All of a sudden, it got into like I feel like coffee flavors, doesn't it? Like Flavia, Petrut. Tudor Petrut, he's funny. I personally, he's such a small role in it, but I put his name in there because I wanted to hear your pronounce.
Yeah, Tudor Petrut. That sounds like definitely at least a flavor of tea of some sort. Did you?
Yeah, I feel like though you could order it at Starbucks one day.
I want a tall Tudor Petrut, light cream.
With extra foam. Yeah.
So a young American woman moves with her husband to Bucharest and begins to suspect that a stranger who watches her from the apartment building across the street may be a local serial killer decapitating women. I really like this movie. The one thing I did not like about it, and it's not the movie's fault, it was intentional, was that Maika Monroe is married to this guy that for his job he moves to Bucharest, and of course his parents speak the language, so he's fluent in the language. Julia, who's Maika Monroe's character, she is not, so she's in a.
Yeah, she's secretly trying to learn it, which shows what a good wife and supportive person she is.
She's agreed to move to this foreign country. She's by herself. He works very long hours for a marketing firm. He sometimes doesn't get home till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And so she's kind of all by herself. So that kind of sets the stage of why she's in a position to feel victimized by this stranger that she keeps kind of running into. And what's interesting about the movie is he's never threatening. So you never really see anything. It's not like he's calling her on the phone and breathing heavily into the thing, or she just sees him in the apartment across the way, like looking through the window. Is he looking at her? She thinks so. I don't know. We don't know. She might be out shopping and she sees him in a store. There's nothing overt about it. And this is why I said having a female director, I love the female point of view for this movie. That I was telling, and I kind of mentioned this to Brian earlier, was as a guy, I don't understand, or I can't put myself in the shoes of being afraid at that level by something so, I guess, mundane, right? Just seeing some other person that, I saw this person in the store, then I went to the park and they were at the park. that to me, it's a coincidence. It doesn't register. But from a female point of view, if that's a man, there's a reason to fear, right? There's
Well, especially when you find out there's, you hear like pretty soon into the movie, they come across like a murder sequence of a woman.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so
yeah, and she's
it's like it makes sense for her to now be, she's in a foreign country, and it's not like she's in, you're in your familiar surroundings. You feel like, okay, if someone chased me, I know how to dodge here. I can sneak in here. I can scream for help, and someone will know. What? She's in a foreign country alone. She's already like 7 levels down at this point from feeling comfortable.
But I thought what was great about the movie is that you see it from her perspective to the point where you can identify with why she's afraid. Even though on the surface, like if you're reading this on a piece of paper, you'd say, well, why would she be afraid of this? But in the movie, it makes perfect sense. And the going back to the only thing I didn't like about the movie, and again, it wasn't the movie, it was a character in the movie, was her husband, because her husband is the type that just will not, number one, just dismisses her fears. Okay, he just dismisses all you're over exaggerating, you're imagining things, you're taking things out of context, and that really bugged me because I hate when guys in movies do this. Because like I was telling the guys on the text feed, I was like, if Olivia came to me and said she was scared because she thought somebody was following them, my first instinct wouldn't be to take the side of the guy that was following her. I would be like, exactly. What the hell's going on? Like, tell me where it is. Like, tell me what I can do. I'd be all over this thing trying to make her feel better.
Yeah, you'd probably take her out of the situation as much as possible.
But it's like at every turn, he takes the side of the stalker.
I mean, the only one line that made sense is when she goes, well, I saw him at the supermarket, and she goes, well, I mean, it is a neighborhood, you might see him at the super, but it was that the thing is that was like on top of 15 other things he did. Like if that was the only thing he said, I could forgive one or two of those lines, but like, the fact that like then he's like, and he just like with her home, like he should have said like okay, if I was him in that situation, and like you said, Olivia said it, or in my case Julie would have said, I would have said, okay, you know what, why don't you maybe come to work with me, or sit in an office, or why don't you, maybe you should go here for a day, or do you want me to find someone to stay with you, or anything, like to make you like what, basically I'd be like, what can I do to make you feel better? What can I do to take this extra anxiety away? Because I already know that you've got it from just being in a foreign country and in a place you don't know anything. You don't even know the language. Lucky enough, the neighbor, she finds a neighbor, which helps a little bit. But again, she's a female, so she's, but she's like, she kind of represents, a little bit tougher because she's been there. She can speak the language. She works at a dance place, so she's probably used to fending off of like advances, and plus she says her ex-boyfriend, who's like, she's like, hey, he's a nice guy, but he doesn't take the hint, kind of thing. So she's kind of got somewhat experience, but again, she's in a familiar setting. I mean, they do a good job, I think, of making the setting seem very like eerie when it shouldn't be, It's
the whole movie, that's what I'm saying. Like the whole movie makes ordinary things seem scary. It takes the mundane and makes you still feel on edge, which I think is totally the director's. I think she wrote it too.
They even made the building across the way creepy. Like the rest of the stuff didn't look creepy. Like she was in a very nice apartment. Yeah. Like her apartment was nice. I'm like, that's like an Airbnb I'd like to have if I was there. At first I thought it was a hotel room, but then I'm like, oh no, that's like the apartment they're staying at. It's really nice, really modern. It's got nice amenities, she's got that nice little cafe she goes to down there, but like his building looks decrepit when she looks across the street, kind of a thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's, they're obviously trying to say that. And, it's like, and it's funny. It's like, I think even though, and I have to say I don't want to give away the ending for people that haven't seen it, but there is a sequence at the end that basically sums up everything we're talking by just a look of one of the characters. I think you probably know what I'm talking about, like, the way the ending twists out. And I think, again, that's, I think the female director kind of like, making her final point.
Right, yeah. And I will say that I guess it's especially frustrating when, as Brian said, there's a serial killer. There's a killer on the loose, like near their building. Yeah. And I don't understand her husband's reaction. I can understand it if there was no killer loose. maybe I could see him a little bit more. Yeah. I don't agree with it, but maybe I can at least understand it. I can't understand it when there's actually a murderer on the loose and you're still going to leave your wife home alone, and she says she's being stalked, and you know good and well there's somebody out there killing people, women, and you still dismiss everything. It just boggled my mind. It was... I want to say it's a little unbelievable, but sadly, I don't think it's unbelievable. I think it's probably
you hear it too many times, and and you see it, and it's represented a lot in movies, and but I think the fact that you get more of a female perspective from it is, I think, what was refreshing. It's that you're like, okay, you know what, of course, Tim and I want to, we would protect Maika Monroe, just on principle. But
I subscribe to the theory that I would love to see an age where we don't have to say female director. We just say director.
I know, and I feel, but as I said it, I felt cringy. Like, oh, why do I have to say it?
The only reason I pointed it out in this movie is because I think that female-centric point of view is so important to the movie and makes the movie so good. That's the reason I pointed out the gender of the director.
But you're right. I hate to say, and that's kind of one of the things I like and hate about the Chainsaw Awards, actually, is that literally it doesn't split the categories. It just puts best performance, best that, and that's great. But the problem is now I'm so used to breaking the two up that now I'm like torn, even though I have a one like head over heels, or that's not the right word. You know what I mean? Like head above the rest, or whatever the term is. You know what it is? Favorite in that category, regardless. But it's like that. It's kind of, we're so used to it. Like now, it's like, oh, but I like the fact that they're forcing you now to look for best performance. Don't worry about the gender. Don't worry about that. And that's the way it should be. It should be that way. Because everyone, it's like it should be best performance. That's just like the same reason we said, people like were up in arms because they made Pinhead a woman, but I'm like, okay, but why does it matter if Pinhead is represented in the best way possible? That's what you want. You want the best performance. You always want the best. Like the same thing when people take an ethnicity and have a problem with them changing the ethnicity. I'm like, but if this person won that role by being the best, who cares? That's what
most
should
of
be
the time. This is
best.
all fictional people anyway.
I know. It's
not like they're just casting Albert Einstein.
I know. Like, okay, all right, if you made Albert Einstein an 8-year-old child, the whole movie, okay, I could see them, people wanting to be up in arms, but it's like, I mean, come on, you're right. It's like, and like you said anyway, like you and Ken both said, confirmed it, right? That like Pinhead works better as a woman technically from the text, right?
Well, it's a Cenobite demon type. I mean, who's to say what gender a demon is? I mean,
exactly. I mean, when you go to the store, do you look what your Cinnabon is? So what's the difference with your Cinnabon?
I gotta talk about our buddy Bern Gorman, because I love him. I've loved him in everything I've ever seen him in. He's in the Halo series.
What a name, too.
He was in the first time I saw him. First time I really, I guess, quote unquote, hated him because of what a great villain he was there was a mini series. I don't know if you ever watched it, Brian, called Turn, and I think it was called Turn, and it was a revolutionary spy series, and it was about the spies during the Revolutionary War, and he played one of the British Revolutionary War commanders, and he was so evil in that show. And it was a really good role. That's where he first came to prominence for me, and then of course I've seen him in other things, and he always tends to play these kind of villains.
Oh, you hear Turn,
but he's really a super nice guy in real life, apparently. I went up and looked some interviews of him after I watched this, because I was like, this guy is always playing a villain.
Oh, and he was in Crimson Peak, too.
Yeah, he's been in a ton of stuff that you may not immediately recognize, but...
Like Game of Thrones? Yeah, he's in a lot.
I went and watched some interviews of him just to see how he comes across in, outside of acting, and he seems like just a super down-to-earth, really nice guy. Which I'm sure he is. Like, most of the best villains are played by really nice people, if you've ever noticed.
Well, look at Mark Menchaca, right? I mean, how many times have we seen him now as a creepy villain? And they even made him like a Klansman in Curb Your Enthusiasm. Yeah. But he's like, in person, we had him on the show. He's like the nicest dude ever.
I think nice guys anybody makes the best villain. But he seems like a really cool guy.
That name, I love it though. It's like I love when like it's like the person's name is a verb, but like it's like like chance or something. It's like what's another good one well it kind of goes back to the not even the verb, but like any kind of descriptive term, like like the George Seinfeld. What the heck am I talking about? George Carlin when he did that whole bit about like the bad names people are using today, and they said, "Where's a good name like Chuck Steak?" It's like, like Biff something or like I'm like that's like Burn Gorman. Like, are you gonna mess with a guy named Burn Gorman? I don't care if he came in like like all like friendly. You would never mess with this dude. You'd never try and like bully him or something.
But yes,
he's Burn Gorman.
It's we won't give away any of the plot details, but just suffice to say, it's a fantastic movie. Maika Monroe really carries this movie. She's in every scene.
Yeah, she does a great job. I mean, I know we joke that we are little crushes on her, but like as an actress, she's phenomenal. I think it was amazing in It Follows. One of the true highlights of the movie was her performance, and in this too, she carries it a lot. She like I think she captures the exactly the mood she needs to be in every sequence, pretty much.
So, Brian, what beer pairing did you have for Watcher?
So this was kind of a one of those like definite like wordplay ones, but it was Night Stalker from Goose Island Brewing out of Chicago, Illinois. This is strong. It's 11.7%.
I've had Goose Island before. Some of their stuff,
yeah. Goose Island's good. They used to be better before they got bought out by Anheuser-Busch. Totally I will say their Goose Island IPA was one of my favorite IPAs, and then they went downhill.
I haven't had, but maybe haven't had them since they got bought out because I heard the same thing.
Yeah. Well, we had it one time after, and both Julie and I looked at each other like, "What happened?" I mean, and then we found out that they got bought, and that was But shame. That's why craft breweries exist to the level they are now, because people know those big conglomerate breweries just churn out the beer, and without whereas a craft brewery will literally cultivate this thing with one bearded dude like watching it at every turn. But anyway, so this one's a heavily hopped imperial stout, so that's good. You got a lot of hops, and I love a good imperial stout. Night Stalker is a heavyweight of a beer. It delivers a formidable punch of hops and rich roasted malt notes to the nose and a silky body that's as dark as night.
Very nice.
So there we go.
All right, guys. Well, we'll wrap it up there and look forward to our February Dismemberment, which drops tomorrow as you're hearing this.
Yep.
And it should be a pretty good month. Not a super big month, but kind of a short month for a short release list for a short month, I should say. But some good titles on there, so stay tuned for that tomorrow.
Yep. And so as soon as you're done listening to this episode, go immediately to theblackwax.net. And also go check out your Chainsaw Awards and make a vote, because I think voting ends next week, I believe, if I'm correct.
I think so, yeah.
So yeah, you don't want to. You definitely don't want to not get your vote heard for Chainsaws. I think this has got a lot of good competition this year. It should be a fun award show. I hope they do. I assume it's going to be on Shudder again and have a cool thing. I look forward to this way more than the Academy Awards. I tell you. Every year, it's always fun. Especially, I want David Dastmalchian.
I hope he does
every time.
Yeah, he was great last year.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll see you back here soon.
See ya.